Wow. Week 3. I know it might be hard to believe. It feels like it's just zooming by. And for you all, you're in an accelerated 9-week regular 3-unit class. So for sure it can feel that way. But we got this. For the most part, I'm just so pleased and grateful to all of you for staying up with this work. And I believe it'll pay off. I hope that you're finding this content is definitely expanding your awareness and knowledge. It seems from your comments you are, and it's important to me that we expose you to modern concepts and practices and understanding. So I do spend a bit of time curating content. As a matter of fact, and I don't know if I've said this, so I will repeat myself. I will run the chance of repeating myself here. This semester, because I run this class every semester, this semester I'm actually re-recording everything. So I spent some time yesterday. I'm actually just finished week 4 for you all. So I released that stuff. But it makes me rethink it. Here's I don't want to say downside, but the content I had been using, I'd used it for about a year and a half, right? It had seen students' feedback. It had benefited from that feedback. So, just know that this may be happening. That you may, because you're going to see some content that has only been seen by me. And and this is what I want to say, I really appreciate those students who work ahead a little bit, because it allows me to fix things that they find. And that's why you always want to read the content, right, of my written, because if I find something is important enough to note in the write-up, I will say update, and then I'll give a date. So just think that. So one of the things I appreciated as I was looking at the work was one student reminded me that I didn't have specific questions, and so I'm going to make sure I do that this time. So here's my first one. Make sure on Discord, are you on Discord, right? And if not, I'd recommend getting on there. And B, make sure you're only on the channel for this class. And it shows CIT82FA20. It's got a dash in there. So, and the only reason I say this is that I have had students accidentally, for whatever reason, get in different channels, because I'm teaching 4 different classes, and therefore there are 4 different channels. So have you been on Discord? If not, please consider. And then B, make sure you're on the right channel for our Discord for our class, okay? And then I've been helping a couple of people out. And the other thing is, consider when you're running into issues to post out there, because that allows other people to see the conversations. And just know, and this is the part I want to say, is that, my cutoff time, I start early. Like right now it's 8:30, and I've been going this morning since 4:30. So, and again, we all have a choice, right, about when we do things, and I release early to give you that window to do it. But if you, and that's your choice, work towards a due date deadline night, there's not a lot I can do to help you, but maybe somebody else could, and that's totally awesome as well. Okay, so the work from last night, and I kind of briefly mentioned it, right? So, and you seemed most of you got this, and I'm glad you did. The roadmap is new content, and I really, because I used to have to pull from other places, and this was pretty good draw of concepts for most of you, your outlines work great. Do make sure in your markdown you're using the headings so that I can clearly see that you've captured all the content from that. And the GitHub pages, that's really, okay, so let's just contextually understand, why are we doing GitHub pages? And GitHub pages is not within our repo, right? It is within your own user account for GitHub. And it's what you're going to use to do project 0, which is a 25% of this class. So that's why that's so important. And what's great is that you all who posted the right URL And I think that's because I probably learned over the years to cover that more clearly, because students would post different kind. They'd post their GitHub stuff. And then, of course, HTTP and the roadmap and the server. Anyway, I think it was a good week. I hope you felt that as well. One thing I do is I roll up, right? So I will roll up a week as it finishes. So here's the deal. We're coming into a big week in this class. And this week, some of this content, especially on Monday, a lot of it, is actually going to be from some, and I say generic content, but all of my programming classes, JavaScript, Python, and now you all, right, are actually, so that content was actually created with all those classes in mind. So I created it once, and you may see me like build, because what we're going to do, and this is what I'm trying to help you understand conceptually, is we're actually going to now move from working on GitHub to working locally using Git. Okay, so GitHub, first part of that is Git. Git is a version control. That control allows you to track all the code that you do, and then you commit that. Now you're seeing that process out on GitHub, but now what we're going to do is have you clone that into your local system. So, and we're going to actually now install the most popular editor / IDE. What does that mean? It just means it's a more than a basic editor, right, for coding. And here's what I would say. If you have something, if you come into this class with some experience and you already like something, you're welcome to choose it. Just know that I might not be the best support, because I use VS Code and I pretty much don't use anything else. So you have to, first step is you're going to install some things onto your computer. Now, in this case, I'm showing this in Windows. Mainly though, I work on a Mac, so that's what I'm in here. But here's what I want you to kind of get in your head when I say get. So the workflow, this is really ultimately what we're doing, is we're taking, right? So what you've been doing is you've been working, right, out here on GitHub. And what you're about to do is move this to work on your local system. So we're going to clone all the work that you've done for both your private, your public, and your GitHub pages, okay, your GitHub pages that we just did. So you're going to clone those into your local system. And I'm going to tell you, like, create a folder, right, onto your computer, and then clone those repos, which will create 3 folders. Okay, so you have one folder called the base folder, and then you clone that, and inside of that you'll have 3. So you'll have all these repos here, and then what you do is you'll code locally, and then you'll commit that, you'll add it to your local repo, you'll commit it, and then you'll push it back up to GitHub. Now it can sound however it sounds to you, but once you get through it, and the reason I do this is that this is a fundamental basic skill in this industry, is having some command line and some workflow understanding, okay? So this is a big step. So know this, my programming classes do this week 1. And I've been asking them, like, is it too much to do it week 1? And most of them say no, but some of them say it was quite a jump. So, again, the earlier you do this work, the more I'm going to be able to help you. And then what we're going to do is you're going to get through that. I'm going to give you a hands-on for the cloning part. And then you're going to do the workflow to where you're making changes. And then you're going to actually start into we're going to start using for our lectures a crash course. This is new content, again, that I'm having for this semester. So, And the first part of this, I'm going to say this to you now, is a little bit funky. He does a little bit of jumping around. And as I moved through this and I moved into the week that I just finished, it got better a little further in. So, you know, because what will happen is he'll code along and all of a sudden he'll delete what he's done. So that's why I give you watch, start here, watch till this, and then, you know, version control, get workflow your code. So anyway, I'm excited for this week. Then after we do that for this week, coming into 4 and then 5, actually, is that right? 1, 2, oh yeah, sorry. We do this 1, 2, part 1, 2, 3, 4, and we don't finish it. I realized yesterday when I was doing it. But then we switch because here is the other thing conceptually I just want to help you understand is like we're going to learn some basic HTML and CSS, and then we're going to give you how to use a framework called Bootstrap to then build sites with. And I've gone back and forth about using Bootstrap. So I still think it's a relevant tool. And part of the reason is that, I mean, a lot of websites are built on it. You may get an opportunity in your future to work on it, and having some experience is good. And Todd, when you get, hopefully you all are considering or taking CIT82FA20 HTML and CSS with Todd. And that's pretty much what we're going to give you an intro to is all that he's going to cover. So we're going to give you, in addition to some basic HTML and CSS, is know how to use Bootstrap. Okay. Okay, I know there's a lot there. So let me just give you a visual. So I actually have here, and this is, right, so I have cloned into my local system a folder called CIT, and let me just make this a little bit bigger so you can get this concept, right? So, and now in my private, as we're doing lectures, right, and we're doing things in here, we're working locally. Now you're going to get introduced to this editor there. That's one of the things I have you do in week 4 is actually try to learn more about, because this can be a little confusing when you first see it, but there's also a command line here, and this is where we end up doing. So this is when you're in here, this is your Explorer. This is basically the equivalent of if you're on a Mac file manager, if you're on Windows, your Explorer. This is your terminal, and in here is where you write code, okay? And then we do a Git workflow to push all this code that we're doing up to GitHub, okay? The last thing I'm going to say is once you clone your repos locally, do not make changes out on GitHub anymore like we've been doing. So we're changing from doing work on GitHub to now cloning that information, those folder structures, those repos into our local system. And what will happen is if you then, after you clone, if you go change it, it just creates a sync issue. It's out of sync, and it wants to always know who's in, where is the stuff being changed. So my last question for you today, with this description, do you at least have a concept of the difference between Git on your local system and GitHub? Maybe I didn't do a good job. Maybe I didn't. See. Anyway, have a great week. I probably forgot something. I hope I didn't. But, the other thing you can always tell me too is like, if there's other topics you want me to cover. But so I've asked at least 3 different questions in this video. All right. Have a great weekend. Peace out.